because Bob spoke as he did for the time that he did, Jay Weatherill has to go at 3:30. He has another commitment he has to come to. So what I'm suggesting that we do is that I ask Jay, he's obviously given this matter some thought, and I seriously thank you for being here today. You didn't have to come to this function today. Knowing that Kata was here, knowing that, you know, a combination of people, this is not necessarily heartland Labor ground for the next Premier of the state. So I think it's all power to your answer for agreeing. I don't know whether Carol told you that you were there before you told her that Kata was going to be on stage with you, but that's another story. Or Bob the other way around. It doesn't matter. We've got 20 minutes with the next Premier of the state. I'd like to invite Jay to speak to the topic and then allow questions from the floor, please, knowing that you're going to leave at 3:30. I mean, if you walk us all up to 3:30, I'll know that you're not serious about taking questions. I know that you aren't that way inclined, but you want to take questions from the floor. So please, would you put your hands together and welcome Jay Weatherill to the microphone.
Much, and I wasn't aware that Bob was going to be here actually, but far from being a Labor unfriendly crowd, he sounded to me like an old-fashioned socialist. But obviously I acknowledge all of my parliamentary colleagues, including Mr. Kata, a federal colleague, Mr. Piccolo, a state colleague, and Mr. Kederick, another of my state colleagues, and I think Mr. Piccolo is also here, and I'm Benny, sorry, I was... And Anne, the Honourable Anne Bressington. There are many MPs here. I wanted to accept this invitation, and I accept it in the context of meeting Minister for Science and Information Economy. And I want to say a few things about the relationship between those endeavours and the farming industry in a moment. But one of the other reasons I wanted to accept the invitation is because I'm about to undertake a new role. And I wanted to accept this invitation because Carol invited me, and she invited me on the basis that I was about to become Premier. And she wanted me to make a connection with this particular very important industry. And I thought it was important that I could accept that invitation. I haven't had direct responsibility for an agriculture portfolio, but I have, in my previous responsibilities as Minister for Environment, had some pretty significant connections with the natural resource management responsibilities, and also with water. So I've come to understand some of the issues in that context, and in an earlier portfolio as Minister for Planning, I've also gained some understanding of the interface issues between rural and peri-urban areas and the land use conflicts that are associated with farming use. So those are my particular understandings of the issue, but today I'm presenting myself to gain a better understanding of the sorts of issues and challenges that face, in particular, the Farmers Federation and your members, but also the agricultural industries. I understand that my colleague, Minister for Agriculture, Michael O'Brien, has been here today, and he's obviously outlined some of the important issues as the government sees it for the food industry. But what I wanted to do is touch on, in particular, the issues of education and science, and in particular to talk about harnessing some of the opportunities that does give us to lift our capacity to export and be innovative in addressing food production and food security issues. And I'm particularly optimistic, I suppose. I mean, there is a sort of somewhat of a sort of cataclysmic sort of perspective about these things, about some degree of doom. But I'm rather optimistic about the opportunities that are available to us in South Australia in the food industry. And I'm optimistic for a range of reasons. We have a very strong history of being innovative in relation to our farming practices. and in particular in the way in which we've been able to use the scientific endeavours to advance that. We've had to, in this state, I think more than perhaps many other regions, understand the limits of our natural resources. The driest state and the driest continent rolls off the tongue. It's commonly used to describe the challenges for us in South Australia. But it's meant that we've had to become particularly resilient to harsh conditions. And I think it also puts us in a very good position to be able to address some of the changes that are already upon us, but we know are going to accelerate in a changing climate. We've demonstrated the capacity to work in a harsh, dry state and to maximise our yield, to think smarter and better, and also to export the skills and knowledge that's come with that understanding. I recently, in my capacity as Minister for Science and Information Economy, had the opportunity to travel to the Wait precinct of our wonderful institution there. And it includes a number of national and state institutions which are undertaking really quite extraordinary work. Many of you would be familiar with them. There's, of course, the University of Adelaide School of Agriculture and Food and Wine, but also CSIRO located there, SARDI, of course, but the Australian Centre for Plant Functional Genomics, the ARC Centre of Excellence for Plant Cell Wall Biology, the Australian Grain Technologies, the Australian Plant Phenomics Facility, and the Australian Genomic Research Facility, and also Food Plus Research Centre. So it brings together a range of institutes and organisations which are doing incredible things in the scientific area, looking at particular crops, grains, looking at the environmental stresses such as drought and salinity, and researching the way in which we can make our plants use nutrients more efficiently. And that research is not just blue skies research, it's working incredibly closely with not only those, the farming communities that have to apply this, but the food manufacturers that take these grains and turn them into product, but also the consumers that have to buy these products, and understanding the way in which they respond to some of these challenges. And we have an enormous capacity which is growing, and we are investing in and can grow further to add value to the sorts of farming practices that already exist to ensure that you are not only resilient to change, but are able to grow and add value to the products that you produce. So I think this is an exciting area of growth for us, and I see many possibilities there, and it is a priority for our government to invest in that area. But I don't want to take too much more time up. I know there are people who want to raise issues with me, and I'm more than happy to hear comments or questions, and if I can't answer them, I'll certainly undertake to bring back answers to you.
Okay, so we've got 10 minutes. I think the real question that the group would want to know, Premier in Waiting, is how fair dinkum are you as an individual about agriculture in the state? How connected are you going to be with the people who are in the business of researching, providing, growing, catching, developing? They really, I think they want to be assured that you understand that they're fair dinkum and they have got places to go and they're going to take the state, and they want the Premier of the state to be aware that everyone's on the same side, is what I'm trying to suggest. Could you just say something in a positive fashion about how fair dinkum you are about agriculture in South Australia? Or not, you know.
Well, can I say that I don't think there's any question about this. I mean, we are committed as a government, and I will be committed as Premier and Leader of the state, to continuing what is being one of the most important underpinning factors for our economic growth. This is an incredibly important industry for our state. The question is not whether I or any leader of this state has a commitment to this industry. It is unquestioned. The question is how we can take a good industry and make it an even better industry, and how we can grapple with the challenges that are being confronted. So it's not even a question that crossed my mind about whether there is or isn't an absence of commitment to this industry. It is a vital industry for the future of our state, and it has my complete commitment as it has had the complete commitment of our government over the last 9 years.
And will O'Brien be elevated in the cabinet, is the other question.
Look, I haven't made my mind up about...
well, the O'Brien person, the Agriculture Minister.
Look, I think that's something you are going to have to wait to hear from me about. It is one of the few things about which I have complete discretion. And almost everything else is a matter that I have to discuss with my cabinet colleagues. But the composition of my cabinet and who is in what portfolio is a decision for me, and I haven't yet made it.
Well, this group would encourage you to elevate whoever you nominate as the premier primary industries person into the inner cabinet because of the seriousness and importance of this industry.
Oh, look, what you should know is we don't have an inner and outer cabinet in South Australia. There's just every minister who sits in cabinet.
Okay, questions please. From here, one and then two. Next. Thank you. I've got a microphone. There's one just here, thanks. And then three.
Yeah,
and four, that's four, and that'll be it. If we get four in, we'll be lucky. And we all know who you are, so we know who you are, what organisation you're representing, and I need questions, not statements. We've got 10 minutes before questions.
Peter Manuel from FLAG SA, Food Producers Landowners Action Group, South Australia. I just think it's an absolute insult to our diggers that fought and lost their lives in this country. And we've got politicians, and I felt 70 years ago, you know, there's mongrels in suits. And I'm starting to think that way. Not you, Bob, you were very good. You know, I just think it's disgusting. And I left school at 14.
Your question, sir, is
and
what?
I just want to say, can you just tell me where the common sense is in selling our prime agricultural land to overseas government investors when we could keep that land in Australian hands and grow and supply food to the world? It's a licence to print money.
Good question.
What's the comment? Look, I understand there are no national investment controls over, except on very large tracts of land that control who can purchase land. I understand that's the national policy at present. I don't understand that there's any proposals to change that. I hear your point, and I acknowledge it.
It's an important point. It's right. It's very important. Who was second over here? Thank you very much. Gerald Martin.
Pleased to hear your assurances of your commitment to agriculture.
Gerald Martin.
Unfortunately, you have been in part of administration which has piled on vast numbers of new employees. At the same time, you've screwed the budgets in agriculture. We've been losing people out of our Weatherill, out of our Sadi, our education facilities for agriculture. So we don't see your commitment. So I'm asking you today to take your new administration, and some of us are looking forward to it because we don't know what we've got now. We'd like to see agriculture taken much more seriously. Our return to the state, you know the numbers, and yet our departments, not subsidised people who want genuine program assistance, has been screwed.
Can I just respond to that in this way? Almost every part of government that isn't health has had to make, in a proportional sense, some degree of reduction. We quarantine some areas, police and education, but generally speaking, just about everything else has had to shrink to accommodate this extraordinary beast, which is the growth in demand for health services, something like 9% per annum. So all I'd say is don't take it personally. You know, often it's not, your sector hasn't been singled out. This is something that's occurring across government. And that's no answer to your broad point, and I acknowledge what you're saying, but you haven't been singled out, and it is, I mean, you've heard the statistics. If things kept going the way they did, by about 2030, the whole of the state budget would be consumed by health spending without any sort of major change. Now, these are dramatic pressures on us. There's no real appetite for extra taxes or extra borrowing. And as a state government, this is the trimming and tucking we have to do.
Sorry, you're next, weren't you? Sid. Yours. And then...
Mr Premier-elect, I congratulate you on your forthcoming position. I would like to know that you can give us an assurance that from now on the boundary of the state does not finish at Chips Cross and Coalgate.
Absolutely. And I want to be a leader for the whole of the state. We have a thing we quaintly call Country Labour, which has its conferences, and this weekend I'm going to the Riverland because I thought it was important that I at least say to the people that regard themselves as Labor supporters in the country, and I freely acknowledge there aren't that many of them, but that I go to that conference because I did want to make that point about the fact that I mean, while of course there are country interests, there are many people in metropolitan Adelaide that have very close connections with country people, both economically and socially. And so I think South Australia, more than any other state, perhaps because of its history, has always had an intimate relationship between country and city. So it makes no sense to single out the metropolitan area to the exclusion of the broader community, because I think by doing that you break down something of the cohesion of what it means to be a South Australian. So I agree with you, and I will be a leader for the whole of the state.
Having the Premier out and about, Jay, is a very useful, important thing to be seen to be doing things as well. And I know that Carol, she's around the corner, she'll have endless opportunities for you to participate post your elevation to position. Sir, name and organisation.
Yeah, Mark Yultali, former Prime Land Ministry rep at the state level for the last 35 years. We've just had our funding pulled this year, Mr Minister. Minister, not mine guys, we've got no representation in this state for livestock apart from SAF, and SAF has got their hands full doing what they do very well, but their membership they're doing their best to hold their membership. I'm concerned today with the number of farmers my age and younger here. I'm past that average age of the Australian farmer already. I suspect in this room today there's probably, I like a show of hands sometime today, how many farmers are here that are actually practising farmers below that average age of 57, 58, or God forbid, whatever it is. The only organisation we've got in the state to represent farmers at the moment, apart from SAC, is an organisation called SAC, which the Minister is responsible for advisory, people advising to him from the fund that comes from our levies from livestock and grain, and we're pretty concerned about where that money is going to be allocated and how wise it's going to be allocated. Because at the moment we've screwed the Advisory Board of Agriculture being virtually closed down, the Land Development Team and associated industries have been closed down. Gerald Martin, what Gerald mentioned, I supply support with regard to downgrading Persa and Sardi. And morally, the number of young farmers here today, and at a grain industry forum 2 weeks ago, there's only a handful of farmers there. I wouldn't say our backs are broken, but morally, people are a bit down-spirited, and there should be a bloody more here today.
Okay.
And people that we're just getting flattened, and we need to be lifted up somehow. I don't know how we're going to do it.
Well, I don't know about the specifics, but can I make some general points? You might have heard that one of the things that I've said I want to change is the way in which we communicate with the people, the electorate, involving them more in the decisions that affect their lives. I am interested in new ways of doing that. What I'd invite you to do, perhaps, is rather than thinking about some of these old institutions, I understand that they've been changed, you can come up with new ways in which you want to communicate with government and get your voice heard. I'm interested in involving myself in doing that. It's what I'm going to be doing generally, so I invite you to do it in your particular case.
Last question at the back, please. And then your Minister's going to have to go. Then I think we'll break for morning, afternoon tea, and we'll come back after afternoon tea.
My name is Eric Nicholson. I don't really represent anyone here today. I guess probably initiatives for urban ag, which is what I advocate for in Adelaide, more particularly City Farm. I've spoken about Jay this before, but I remember. My question is related to earlier session, where a couple of big issues I think were breaking down the disconnect between urban and rural, and where food comes from. Most people live in cities don't know where food comes from and don't appreciate what happens on farms. So I was wondering what the state government can do to help on that front in terms of education, getting what Julian Cribb talked about this food year. So that initiative, what the state government can do towards getting food more in the curriculum. And the other part was urban agriculture. So maybe not getting city farms, but other major cities necessarily have that, but taking that kind of concept, making it really a big focus of what people see in cities.
Julian Cribb put up that suggestion about farming on the tops of skyscrapers and so on, within urban areas around the world?
Look, I'm very interested in this. I know in the European Union there is quite an amount of resources that's provided to very various member states to ensure that urban children are introduced to farming so that they can actually understand that, where an egg comes from or where milk comes from, and generally speaking involve themselves in a way which actually assists their education. I've seen myself a thing called a didactic farm just out of Rome that does that sort of thing, and it's a very powerful way of not only ensuring that children actually learn in a learn-by-doing environment, which is a very powerful way of learning, but also ensures that the concerns and reality of their food and day-to-day life is actually part of their education. So it actually is quite a powerful political way in which the industry is able to ensure that its needs and concerns are brought to the attention of young people and their parents. So I'm very interested in that. You might have seen that in our schools, South Australia, pound for pound, there's more Stephanie Alexander kitchen gardens than any other state. That's a very powerful way of introducing produce and food preparation into the curriculum in a way which is also very powerful to make those connections between the land and young people.
Would you please thank Joe Weatherill for being here this afternoon? We'll introduce these two larrikins on my left along with Mr. Catter, reintroduce them shortly. I think it might be an appropriate time for us just to take a break, stand and catch our breath. We'll have afternoon tea and we'll come back in 20 minutes' time and we'll carry on the conversation in relation to the conference this afternoon. Well, thanks.